This could be the most dangerous cold pattern we've seen in years. The situation across the United States is about to become far more dangerous than what we experienced this past weekend. I'm tracking a record-shattering Arctic blast that's going to make the devastating winter storm we just witnessed look like a warm-up act. What's developing over the next 7 to 10 days represents one of the most extreme weather patterns I've analyzed in my career, and I need to be completely transparent with you about the life-threatening conditions that are approaching. Right now, nearly 500,000 people are still without power from this weekend's catastrophic ice storm. Louisiana, Mississippi, and Tennessee are bearing the brunt of these outages, with entire communities sitting in homes with no heat as temperatures continue to plummet. The bone-chilling air that's currently locked across the central and southern plains isn't moving anywhere. It's getting reinforced, and it's about to get significantly worse. I've been studying the upper-level pattern, and there's a massive low-pressure system sitting over the Great Lakes and extending into Canada. This is the same system that brought us the devastating snow and ice this past weekend, but it's not finished with us. What's happening now is this system is positioning itself to unleash another powerful Arctic blast, and the timing couldn't be more dangerous for those still recovering from the ice storm damage. Thursday night and Friday morning mark the beginning of what I can only describe as an unprecedented cold surge. This isn't your typical winter cold snap. The Arctic air mass that's building over Wisconsin and Michigan is going to dive south with remarkable intensity. By Friday and Saturday, this extreme cold is going to reach areas that rarely see such brutal conditions. I'm talking about the possibility of snow flurries as far south as Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. This is not normal, and the impacts are going to be felt by tens of millions of people. Over the next 7 days, we're looking at temperatures that will be 20 to 25 degrees below normal across almost the entire eastern United States. But that's just the beginning. As we move into Friday and Saturday, I'm forecasting record-breaking cold that will put most of the United States 30 to 40 degrees below normal. Even in Florida, areas around Port St. Lucie and Miami are going to experience temperatures 35 degrees below what they should be for this time of year. Let me walk you through the temperature progression, because understanding the timeline is crucial for preparation. Today, we'll see some areas in the southern plains and southeast climb above freezing. Nashville will reach right around 32 degrees, but here's the critical point I need to emphasize. Any ice that melts today, any liquid on the roadways, is going to refreeze tonight. This creates a secondary ice hazard that could catch people off guard. Tomorrow morning, Ohio is going to experience extreme conditions. Columbus will wake up to temperatures around 3 degrees below zero. By Wednesday afternoon, Nashville will barely scratch the freezing mark again, and snow will finally begin to melt across Oklahoma and Arkansas. If you're in those areas, enjoy seeing the snow disappear, because what's coming next is going to test everyone's endurance. Thursday brings the real escalation. Areas across the Northeast and Midwest will see temperatures drop to 20 degrees below zero. This is when the pattern really starts to show its teeth. Friday and Saturday represent the peak of this extreme cold outbreak, with temperatures crashing across the East Coast to levels we haven't seen in years. But Sunday and Monday are shaping up to be the worst days of this entire sequence. Most of the Ohio Valley will be stuck in single digits, and here's what's truly unprecedented about this pattern. Miami, Florida will be experiencing near-freezing temperatures. I've been forecasting weather for years, and seeing Miami approach 32 degrees during a continental Arctic outbreak of this magnitude is extraordinary. The wind chill values are going to be absolutely brutal. Saturday morning, we're looking at wind chills below 20 degrees below zero across most of the Ohio Valley, Midwest, and Northeast. Areas near Columbus could experience wind chills as low as 30 degrees below zero. Sunday morning intensifies this even further. Down in Florida, it's going to feel like it's in the teens and 20s. For a region completely unprepared for such conditions, this represents a genuine emergency situation. Now, while this extreme cold is the primary story, I'm also tracking what could develop into a very unusual winter storm threat this weekend. The pattern that's creating this Arctic blast is also setting up conditions for a potentially significant coastal storm system. This is where things get really interesting from a meteorological perspective, and potentially very dangerous for millions of people along the East Coast. Wednesday looks relatively quiet across most areas, with just some light snow possible across the Great Lakes region and into Canada, along with the Pacific Northwest. Most of the country will be dealing with the brutal cold without additional precipitation concerns, but Thursday starts to show more activity as that Arctic air begins its southern push. I'm seeing the possibility of light snow showers developing across the northern plains. Thursday afternoon and evening, potentially extending south into Kansas. By late Thursday and early Friday, there's a chance for light snow to develop across parts of Arkansas as that Arctic air mass continues its march southward. Friday morning could bring snow flurries to Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee. These aren't areas accustomed to seeing snow during these patterns, but the Arctic air mass is going to be that intense. Friday night and Saturday is when this pattern could produce something truly extraordinary. We're going to have an intense Arctic high-pressure system, measuring around 1050 millibars, positioned over Canada. Simultaneously, moisture will be circulating in the Gulf of Mexico. The combination of these features is going to create conditions for a coastal storm system. Friday into early Saturday, I'm tracking the possibility of snow showers underneath this Arctic high-pressure system. Areas like Oklahoma and Texas could see very light snow flurries. We're not expecting major accumulations in these areas, but the fact that we're discussing snow this far south speaks to the exceptional nature of this pattern. Saturday brings the development of a low-pressure system near the Carolinas, and this is where things could become very serious very quickly. This system is forecast to rapidly intensify Saturday night and Sunday. The models are showing moisture streaming out of the Gulf, combining with snow development as the Arctic cold front continues pushing south. What's particularly concerning is the rate of intensification I'm seeing in the computer models. The low-pressure system could deepen from 1005 millibars to 971 millibars in less than 24 hours. This would create what we call a bomb cyclone, a rapidly intensifying low-pressure system that can produce devastating impacts. If this scenario plays out, we're looking at the potential for a significant winter storm right along the immediate coastline. The snowfall potential is highly dependent on the exact track of this coastal system, but early indications suggest areas across the Carolinas, eastern Georgia, and Virginia could see meaningful accumulations. By late Saturday night and early Sunday, if this system tracks close enough to the coast, we could see significant snowfall extending into the northeast. But the snow is only part of the story with a system like this. If we see a coastal storm of this magnitude develop, wind gusts could exceed 100 miles per hour offshore. For those in the Carolinas and extending into the Northeast, blizzard conditions would be possible, with wind gusts potentially reaching 60 to 70 miles per hour. I want to emphasize that this represents one of several possible scenarios. Coastal storms are notoriously difficult to predict, and a 10 to 20 mile difference in the storm track could mean the difference between significant snowfall and no snow at all for many areas. The European model shows a similar winter system developing along the coastline, though not quite as intense for Sunday morning. Interestingly, it also suggests the possibility of snow showers in Florida Sunday morning, which would be extraordinary. The Canadian model presents another scenario, showing a winter system developing along the coastline with significant snow potential for the Carolinas, Maryland, and southern New England. However, it positions the storm slightly more offshore, demonstrating the critical importance of track with coastal systems. When I look at the ensemble guidance, I see a lot of low-pressure centers clustered close together, indicating high confidence that some type of winter storm will develop along the East Coast. However, there's still enough spread in the solutions to suggest uncertainty in the exact impacts. The National Weather Service blend of models is already showing widespread 4 to 8+ inches of snow along the East Coast, but I want to caution that if we see the more intense scenario develop, totals could be significantly higher right along the coast while being lower inland. What makes this potential winter storm even more concerning is that it's developing during a period of record-breaking cold. The combination of heavy snow and extreme wind chills would create life-threatening conditions for anyone caught unprepared. This isn't just about inconvenience or travel delays. We're talking about a weather pattern that could pose serious risk to human life, especially for those still dealing with power outages. The cold pattern I'm tracking shows no signs of letting up over the next 7 to 10 days. This represents a significant departure from normal winter weather patterns and suggests we're locked into an extreme regime that could persist well into February. For those still recovering from the devastating ice storm, this prolonged cold could significantly hamper recovery efforts and create additional hardships. What's particularly troubling about this forecast is how the extreme cold will impact infrastructure that's already been damaged. Power lines that survived the ice loading from this weekend could face additional stress from the extreme cold and potential wind from the coastal storm. Repair crews working to restore power will be doing so in some of the most dangerous conditions they've ever encountered. The duration of this cold outbreak cannot be overstated. We're not talking about a day or two of bitter cold followed by a quick warm-up. This pattern has staying power, and many areas may not see temperatures return to normal for well over a week. For regions dealing with power outages, this timeline presents serious challenges for public safety and emergency management. I need to stress the importance of preparation for those in the potential path of both the extreme cold and the possible coastal winter storm. If you're in an area that could see impacts from either scenario, now is the time to ensure you have adequate heating sources, food, water, and medical supplies. The combination of extreme cold and potential heavy snow with high winds creates a particularly dangerous situation. The meteorological pattern driving these conditions represents something we don't see very often. The persistence and intensity of the Arctic air mass, combined with the potential for a significant coastal storm, creates a compound threat that emergency managers and the public need to take seriously. This isn't typical winter weather. This is an extreme pattern that demands extreme preparation and caution. Looking at the longer range pattern, what concerns me most is that this extreme weather regime shows no signs of breaking down quickly. The jet stream configuration that's allowing this Arctic air to penetrate so far south is remarkably persistent. We're looking at a pattern that could maintain these below normal temperatures well into the first week of February and possibly beyond. The temperature departures I'm forecasting are truly exceptional. When I talk about areas being 30 to 40 degrees below normal, I want you to understand what that means in practical terms. Cities like Atlanta, which should be seeing highs in the 50s, could struggle to reach 20 degrees. Memphis, normally in the 40s this time of year, may not see temperatures above 10 degrees for several consecutive days. These aren't minor cold snaps. These are temperature departures that put this pattern into the record books. For the Southeast, this cold outbreak represents conditions that many residents have never experienced in their lifetimes. Infrastructure in these regions simply isn't designed for sustained temperatures this low. Water pipes that survived the ice storm could face additional stress from the extreme cold. Heating systems that worked adequately during normal winter conditions may struggle to maintain comfortable indoor temperatures when outdoor readings drop to levels rarely seen in these areas. The wind patterns associated with this Arctic outbreak are going to make the cold feel even more brutal than the raw temperatures suggest. Strong northwesterly winds will be howling across the Great Lakes, creating lake-effect snow in addition to the extreme cold. Wind chills across portions of the Midwest, and Great Lakes could approach 50 degrees below zero, creating conditions where frostbite can occur in minutes rather than hours. What makes this situation even more dangerous is the timing. We're dealing with power outages from the ice storm, damaged infrastructure, and now extreme cold moving in. Emergency shelters in affected areas are going to face unprecedented demand, just as heating systems are pushed to their limits. The cascading effects of this weather pattern could create humanitarian challenges that extend far beyond typical winter storm impacts. The coastal storm potential I mentioned earlier deserves additional attention because the timing coincides with the peak of the Arctic outbreak. If this storm develops as some models suggest, we'd be looking at heavy snow and high winds occurring simultaneously with life-threatening cold. This combination creates what meteorologists call a compound extreme event, where multiple hazards interact to create impacts greater than the sum of their parts. The European model's latest runs have been particularly aggressive with the coastal storm scenario. It's showing the potential for what could be a historic snowfall event from the Carolinas through New England, with accumulations that could exceed 2 feet in some coastal areas. The storm would be fueled by the incredible temperature contrast between the Arctic air mass over land and the relatively warmer waters of the Atlantic Ocean. But I want to stress again that coastal storms are inherently difficult to forecast. Small changes in the storm track can mean the difference between a major snow event and a complete miss. A track just 50 miles further offshore could keep the heaviest snow over the ocean, while a track 50 miles closer to land could bring crippling snowfall to major metropolitan areas along the Interstate 95 corridor. The timing of this potential coastal storm is particularly concerning because it would occur during the coldest part of the Arctic outbreak. Cleanup and recovery efforts would be hampered not just by the snow, but by extreme cold that could make outdoor work dangerous or impossible for extended periods. The combination of heavy snow, high winds, and extreme cold could create conditions reminiscent of some of the worst blizzards in recorded history. For aviation, this pattern represents a nightmare scenario. Airports that are already dealing with delays from the ice storm would face additional challenges from both extreme cold and potential heavy snow. Dicing operations become significantly more difficult in extreme cold, and wind-driven snow could create whiteout conditions. The maritime implications of this pattern are also severe. Shipping routes along the East Coast could face dangerous conditions if the coastal storm develops with the intensity some models suggest. Wave heights could exceed 20 feet, with wind gusts over hurricane force offshore. Agriculture across the affected regions is going to take a significant hit from this prolonged cold outbreak. Citrus crops in Florida that survived the initial cold snap may not survive the sustained below freezing temperatures now forecast. Livestock operations across the South will need to implement extreme cold protocols. The energy implications of this weather pattern cannot be understated. Natural gas and electricity demand are going to spike to levels that could strain the power grid, just as we're dealing with infrastructure damage from the ice storm. Rolling blackouts could become necessary in some regions to prevent widespread power failures. Transportation networks across the eastern United States are going to face severe challenges throughout this pattern. Even without additional snow, extreme cold creates problems for vehicle operations, from battery failures to tire blowouts. If the coastal storm materializes, we could see travel becoming impossible across large portions of the East Coast. The human health impacts of prolonged exposure to extreme cold are serious and often underestimated. Hypothermia and frostbite can develop more quickly than people realize, especially when combined with wind. Emergency rooms across the affected areas need to be prepared for an influx of cold-related injuries. What's particularly challenging about this forecast is the uncertainty timeline. While I'm highly confident about the extreme cold pattern, the details of the coastal storm won't become clear until we're closer to the weekend. This makes preparation difficult for areas that could see major snow impacts. You cannot wait until Friday to prepare. The psychological impact of this weather pattern should not be overlooked. Communities that just experienced a devastating ice storm are now facing the prospect of record-breaking cold, and possibly another major winter storm. The cumulative stress of dealing with multiple extreme weather events creates challenges that extend far beyond the immediate physical impacts. Emergency management agencies across the eastern United States are going to face their most significant test in years. The combination of ongoing recovery from the ice storm, extreme cold, and the potential for an additional major winter storm creates a multifaceted crisis that will require unprecedented coordination and resources. The economic impacts of this weather pattern will be felt for weeks after the weather returns to normal. Business closures, transportation delays, agricultural losses, and infrastructure damage will create ripple effects throughout the economy. The timing, coming right after the ice storm, means many businesses won't have fully recovered from the first event before being hit by the second. As I wrap up this analysis, I want to emphasize that this is not a typical winter weather situation. The combination of extreme cold duration, record-breaking temperature departures, and the potential for additional significant winter weather creates a compound threat that demands serious preparation and attention. Everyone in the affected areas needs to treat this as the major weather event it has the potential to become. Stay informed, stay prepared, and stay safe as we navigate through what could be one of the most challenging winter weather patterns in recent memory.